following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Media Services, the City of Oshkosh, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi everyone, welcome to Eye on Oshkosh. Cheryl Hentz here. Dan Rylance is not able to be with us this evening. He sends his regrets, but he also sent questions for our guests, so that's helpful. And our first guest, speaking of that, is Tim Rikkers. He's with the Akcess Acquisition Group. Most people, I think, in Oshkosh are familiar with Tim. Akcess is the group that's trying to put a development in along the waterfront, a hotel, a restaurant, and an office complex is what the original plan was, and we're going to find out from Tim tonight if that's still the plan, what his plans are. For those of you who follow the Oshkosh Common Council meetings, you'll know that just a week prior to our taping this show, the council turned down an offer from the chamber to actually buy the Chamber of Commerce building. That vote failed 3-4. And so we're going to talk to Tim about, kind of where he goes from here and what his plans are. So that being said, thanks, Tim, for being here. We appreciate it.
Cheryl, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
We appreciate you driving up, for a half an hour. And speaking of that, in the second half hour of this show, we'll be joined by Amy Weinsheim from the Oshkosh Area School Board. And Tim will be going back home to, where is it?
Madison.
Madison, okay.
Right.
Well, hopefully the storms will hold out until then.
Hopefully,
so,
yeah.
All right. So, well, as I mentioned in the opening, there was this vote that had come before the council last week. It was a long meeting.
It was a long meeting.
That issue alone, I think, took 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah, I didn't stay to the end.
No, they were there. They were
left,
still voting on things, I think, until 1:30 in the morning, something
yeah.
like that. It was late. It was really, really late. But, this particular vote was to purchase the chamber building. It was the second time that this vote had come back.
Right.
It had been before the council the first time, I think, in July of last year, sometime last summer. And then it failed 7-0.
Right.
And this particular time, Burke Tower, Frank Tower, and Brian Bain voted to purchase the chamber building.
Right.
And the remaining 4 councilors, Esslinger, McHugh, King, and Palmieri, voted against buying it. And so, obviously, it's not going to be bought at this time. That was a setback for you. It was a disappointment, that's for sure.
I think that at first blush it was a disappointment because we had politicked, quite frankly, for that. But ironically, what it did is it changed our focus a little bit and galvanized us. I think to take things. One of the challenges of that whole process is that we were not a party to that entire vote. When I say we, I mean Akcess Acquisition Group, and we had no control over it. We did our best to politic for it, and we certainly tried to demonstrate the pros and cons. But we couldn't control our destiny there, and so what we did is we stepped back. We still believe that the Chamber of Commerce is an outstanding partner in our project, and so we said, okay, well, let's marshal resources and let's move forward with the private group to buy the chamber building. We'll deal with it. We're real estate folks. We'll deal with that. We're better suited to deal with it than a municipality typically is, and so we are in the process right now of putting together a group to go out and acquire that building in some form or another, which will then allow the chamber to come into our building, partner with Davis and Kielthau, and kick off our project. So in one way it was a setback, but there were some very good things I think that came out of that meeting, and we've actually taken some of that to heart. Quite frankly, a lot of it was from Tony's comments. We've had great support from the entire council, and even Tony, although he's probably been the the biggest detractor, but I think he's been consistent in his criticism, which is we don't have public buy-in. We're not doing something that the public's decided about. And the last sort of machination of the project has been stripped back a little bit to a hotel, the office building in the hotel, and we've actually taken out the full-service restaurant for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is just risk. And so we as a group, we sat back and we said, okay, what are we going to do to get the public energized again, to help us fix a perception problem? And so we are now, with Jay Supley, quite frankly, spearheading this, putting back in a freestanding bar restaurant with an outdoor patio that will be more accessible, that will be more exciting, where people can come have a happy hour, where they can dock their boats and enjoy it, come down from UW and enjoy it.
Okay.
So it's a start.
Okay.
We can't build a water park. We can't build, something, but we did listen and we recognize, and again, as much as sometimes Tony has been a detractor, he is a very passionate guy. He's certainly bright, and he certainly cares about his constituency. And so we said, okay, what do we do to react to that? And so I don't know if this will ultimately appease him, but I think it's a good start.
Sure, and we'll talk about each of these components, because we've got a half an hour to do that.
Sure.
But tell me what you're doing with finding a group to buy the chamber building. You're putting a group together on your own that will be buying this, or that they will be searching for a buyer?
No, we will in one form or another purchase or cause to be purchased the building.
All right.
Yeah.
Here's the other side of the coin. Okay, now I was not in favor of the city buying that building.
Right.
I was not, and I told you that when we talked
Sure,
on the phone.
no problem. You weren't alone, turns out.
Right. I'm probably in the majority on that one, I think. And my feelings were for the same reason that, I think the council probably expressed to you. I'm still a cheerleader for your project.
Sure.
And I have been from the beginning. And I've always appreciated your honesty and your willingness to talk, not just to us about the project, but, the rest of the media coming before the council and talking about things with, in front of the cameras and stuff. And that's something that we never did see from Tom Doig. And so I think everybody can appreciate that, and I certainly do. But how the other side of the coin then is, okay, if the city's not going to buy it, somebody else should, and you're saying that you're looking to put a group together that will do that. Let me play devil's advocate and say to you, who would want to buy it if the city has designs on tearing it down and realigning a road?
Well, and what I think you're going to see is, where I think it's heading is that the city will convey the land underneath the building to the chamber. And I think that they really have to do that, quite frankly. I don't think by design, but simply by the series of events, this whole process, and it wasn't just this most recent one, but understanding that the city had designs on this project at some point, the whole process of the city looking at this building as a potential acquisition for street repair has degraded the value of the building. Not intentionally, but it has degraded it. So any typical buyer is going to come in and say, well, yeah, I'm going to come in, invest my dollars, put a business here, and then buy it, and the city will come back and take it under their powers of public taking.
Sure.
Well, which is true. Now it's a different story if it's a fee simple real estate a holding, and so what we're hopeful for, and it's my understanding that it has a sponsor already on the Common Council, who will come in and suggest that the city convey the land. Okay. And then it's a different situation, and whoever owns that parcel now will have an easier time controlling their destiny. Now, can the city still take the land at a later date? Sure. But then it's a business decision by the owners. Theoretically, when our project grows up and gains value, the surrounding areas gain value. And so there's an arbitrage between what you buy it for and where it's going to go, and maybe you make a buck doing that.
Okay.
And then just from the cost now of developing or acquiring that building, there's a lot of ways to look at it. You can look at it as just a deal cost of the entire asset. If the developers of the waterfront, like Akcess, have to spend $550,000 to buy this building to make the project go, it's a different financing tool. Or we go out and we find public partners, or we go out and find somebody who is local and just wants to own it. They're a local real estate buyer.
Okay.
So, but I guess what I'm telling you is that one of those is going to happen.
Okay.
But you know, we've got the resources to do it. We've talked with other interested parties who want to do it. So now we just need to get the mechanics of the document put together.
Okay. The restaurant. You had originally talked about Montreal Bread Company restaurant going in there. What happened that I know you kind of alluded to it before,
Sure.
economics and so forth, but what, expound on that a little bit if you would.
Yeah,
What
I'm happy
happened
to. And I can't, it's interesting. As you probably have seen, and probably your most of the folks in Oshkosh, the point people in this have been me and Jay Supling.
Mm-hmm.
Our other partners are all interested, but they haven't been up here pounding the pavement like Jay and I have. And we've really bifurcated duties. Jay's a partner in this deal.
Mm-hmm.
He's got skin in the game, and we're together.
And he's talented.
Oh,
he's very successful at what he does.
I said it in the council meeting. The best thing and the luckiest thing that happened to our group coming to Oshkosh was to meet the Suplee organization. I mean, we probably would not still be here if not for Jay and his team. Number one, just because of the goodwill that we got, fairly or unfairly, just by being with them, and two, really the guidance that they've been able to give us. So. Because we don't do hospitality, it's not our strong suit, and they're experts at it. So
did they approach you, or did you approach them?
No, it's funny. I approached Jay and said, "Hey, I know that I've heard you guys are good at restaurants. You want to put a restaurant on the site?" He says, "No, I'm busy." I said, "Please?" He said, "I'll tell you what, come on up and meet me." And so we started talking about it, and I went back down to Madison and talked with our group and said, "We really need to reevaluate this. I think there's somebody we need to bring into this deal." Because from the first day, we've always said we want to use local resources to make this thing work. Mm-hmm. We didn't realize how critical his partnership was going to be, and we got lucky. So, but anyway, back to Mbico, Montreal Bread Company. Jay doesn't get too involved in the office portion of this, and I don't get involved in the hotel restaurant portion of it. I trust him. I trust his judgment. And so Mbico was, as I understand it, and I may have some of the facts wrong, but Mbico was a franchise that he and his family own. And I just don't know whether or not they're interested in bringing it up to Oshkosh. The other problem with that was it's a fairly large footprint in terms of the restaurant. And when we were working with the former hotel operator, Cambria Suites, while we had preliminary approval to put the restaurant next to the hotel, attached to the hotel, mm-hmm. It was new to the hotel. They're building that brand, and they weren't sure they wanted to confuse the brand by sticking a restaurant onto it.
Sure.
So we just never, ever got full approval. Okay. And as we're going through the entire process, the application process and submitting dollars and plans and so on and so forth, it became less and less clear we could do what we wanted to do. And then Jay became less and less certain that Mbico was the right concept for what we wanted to do, which was, it was a little bit trendier. It might have not resonated as well in Oshkosh as something else would have. Mm-hmm. And so and then the whole deal started to kind of unravel. And we thought, well, all right, what can we pare down now to get this project going, to make some progress, and then we'll pick up some style later.
Sure.
So we got rid of the restaurant concept and said, let's just focus on the office building, let's focus on the hotel, and see what we can make this work. And then, like every deal, it turned again, and we got a little bit lucky. Quite frankly, John Casper and his crew, and Randy Knutson and the other guys at the chamber said, all right, we'll come in, we're going to partner with you guys, we'll make it happen. They used their resources to work with the folks at Davis & Keelthau, Ed Williams and Jim Macy, to say, guys, here's what we want to do. We believe that this business development office will really positively impact your business. Come with us. And they came back to us and said, all right, we can fill a floor and you can build a building. I called up Jay and I said, we might have something here. And so we got back on track. And then ironically, that's when we started focusing on the chamber acquisition by the city, mm-hmm. Which derailed. But by then we were so excited we figured something else out. And like I said, then we took in Tony's comments, redid our numbers, and said, we think we can make this work. So that's where we are.
Okay, excellent. And the hotel has changed also. Originally, it was Cambria Suites.
No, originally it was Town and Country. No, not Town and Country. It was Country Inn and Suites.
Okay.
Way back in the day.
Okay.
And back when this was just
But
a pipe, back when it was a pipe dream.
Yeah, somewhere along the way,
Yeah.
it was Cambria Suites.
That's correct.
And now it has recently changed to Sheraton 4 Points.
Sheraton 4 Points.
Okay.
Which is a kind of I think the term is limited service hotel, and that may not be the right brand. I want to say it's a step down, like a Holiday Inn Express. I believe, with no insult to Holiday Inn Express, I think it's a nicer brand than Holiday Inn Express. It's a Sheraton brand, where we felt better about the deal, the Sheraton deal. The rooms are a little bit smaller. The amenity package is the same. You know, pool, workout room, Wi-Fi, breakfast, full kitchen, bar, lounge. I think the outside is every bit as nice, maybe even prettier. Our cost per room is a little bit less. We're able to charge a little bit less, keep our and we believe it's just a better business opportunity for us.
Okay.
Cambria Suites was a great brand, a great hotel, and we really enjoyed the relationship we had with that team. But it just came down to, we think we have a better business opportunity, and it's a better fit for that piece of land.
Okay. All right. And the person on the council, you didn't name the person, but who is probably going to be sponsoring this deed transfer, if you will, to the chamber. I know Jess King had brought that up at the last meeting. She tried to offer that as an amendment, and it failed. So this is essentially the same kind of thing that will be coming forward, or how will it differ from what she was trying to do?
Well, you know, and I've really had the pleasure of getting to know, actually, quite frankly, all 7 of the folks. And I talked with Jess today because, you know, she was uncomfortable with. She's been an ardent supporter of our project since day one, and she was very uncomfortable with this acquisition by the city, and felt bad about it. She said, "I want to vote for it because I want your project to be a go, but I just don't feel good about this process." And I really respected the fact that she thought 7 ways from Sunday how to make it work. And I think that had her ideas been presented in a workshop format rather than at a council meeting, some or all of her suggestions would have been made. But Tony made a good point during it. He said, "Look, we just got to give a vote up or down." You know, her ideas were so such a break from what had been suggested in the past that it was tough to get your arms around everything she wanted to do. So she did say, let's sort of let the market take over. She talked about some type of potential development assistance grant, which I don't think is in the cards, and we still haven't asked for it. But you know, what it did, I think, what she did was set the table for some alternate ways of approaching this problem.
Okay.
So
with kind of the new design for the whole thing, the
Yep.
whole model here.
Yeah.
Will you be searching for TIF money again?
Well,
Because that was part of the chamber purchase deal. There would have been some TIF money involved in that.
in what form?
I thought that I had read in the paper that there was going to be $100,000 coming from an existing TIF to help with that purchase.
Yeah, you know, and I'm not entirely, again, because I wasn't a party to this deal, I'm not sure how the financing was going to work out, quite frankly. I know a large portion of it, if you look back at the original RFP that was done, there was a road that the city was going to build sort of from Riverway Drive as it extends in a I guess sort of a horseshoe pattern down to Marion Road, and we said, well, we don't want you to do that. That just eats up square footage.
Sure.
We don't need it. So they had those dollars that could have been used, and I think that might have been the TIF portion.
Okay.
Are we asking for additional TIF monies? No. Are we asking for a more creative way of spending some of the dollars? Yeah, we are. But not in the form of development assistance grants or anything else. The dollars that were, there are some EPA monies that could be that could be potentially used differently. We've got, I think, a better commitment from the city to help us with commerce grants.
Okay.
And things like that, but I don't believe that there are additional TIF monies that would have been used or could be used. I don't know where those monies would have come from. The TIF was set.
And let me just clarify, you weren't actually seeking the TIF money. It would have, the TIF money would have come from an existing TIF to help buy the chamber building.
That's right.
So, and if you're putting together a group of people to buy the chamber building, I can't imagine that you'd be seeking TIF money to help purchase that building. So
I'd be happy to get it, but I don't think it's legal.
Probably not. So don't bring the wheelbarrow up to City Hall doors just yet.
I just backed my car up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now we've got a new city manager who, by the time this airs, could very well be named. Some people have said, well, why not, and of course you're moving forward with some plans here anyway, but some people have said, well, why not wait until the new city manager comes on board and see once, what he suggests for this. It sounds to me like you've pretty well...
There are any women candidates?
No.
Oh.
There may have been, I think that originally in the whole pack of, several dozen, there was one woman candidate, but of the finalists, there's 5.
I was just hassling you.
Yeah, I know. I'm not one of them, so. Yeah. But in any event, you've been mostly working with Jackson Kinney, and that's kind of been your point person. And he was your point person even when we had a city manager and not an acting city manager. Will you be working closely at all with the new city manager when he does come on board, or have I realize that you've got your vision set out here and you're moving forward with a plan.
Well, I would imagine that we would just remain consistent with the ability, with not only the desire but the intent to make sure that we're working with whoever the city would like us to work with. We would be very interested in making sure that, number one, we're meeting the needs of the city manager, but number two, having access to his resources. Okay. So and we will go with an open mind and certainly share with him all of our information, our vision, and determine whether or not we're in good graces or whether or not we need to change something. But we've had good luck with the administration thus far, and hopefully that would continue. Okay.
Say, for example, something else, presents itself in the way of a roadblock here.
And it will. Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Nature and Mother Nature and human nature being what it is here. So something else pops up. And Mother Nature can cause all kinds of construction delays. That jacks the price up. You don't know what you're facing in the way of anything else that may pop up at a council level. But say those hurdles do come. How will you continue to approach this from the same standpoint that you have been? With the idea that you're going to move forward with something, or at some point. Will you just say, what, we just can't do this, and we're going to throw in the towel?
Well, and we've been close to that. No joking. We've been close to that.
Sure.
And we haven't. I think we've been given, or we've provided ourselves with every reason to walk away.
Sure.
But we've made some great relationships here in Oshkosh. I've got some very good friends now. And we still very much believe in the project. So I guess what I would tell you is that could something unexpected happen that should really make this thing go upside down? Sure. And you have to make a tough business decision to walk away. But, Oshkosh has got great resources. I love the geography. I like the culture. I like the people. I like UW. Somebody is going to make this thing work. It's just too exciting a piece of exciting a location, and we think we're the right team. So we've demonstrated a sort of a tenaciousness and a level of tenacity. So I don't think we're going to leave anytime soon.
All right. Next part of that question, then, say something comes up and for whatever reason the chamber doesn't go into that building. Are you then just going to throw out the idea of the office building and still proceed with something else? Because see, that's what I've kind of felt all along is, okay, well, still put up the hotel because clearly we keep hearing that we need a hotel
Right.
in Oshkosh. The Supleys have had tremendous success with waterfront restaurants.
Sure.
I mean, they've had success with everything else too, but waterfront restaurants is one of their mainstays.
Right.
And you know, I've heard the arguments and I understand them about, you know, if you're putting up 2 or 3 projects at once, you save on the construction costs.
Right.
But at some point, Tim, don't you say, you know what, at this juncture, we can't obviously do component A, so let's go ahead and at least put in components B and C, or C and D, or whatever numbers and
Right.
letters you want to attach
Right.
to these things. And isn't it better to have something
Sure.
rather than nothing?
Well, not always, because if you have something that's underperforming and it just drags you underwater, you're in trouble.
But would a hotel underperform?
Well, it could. I mean, look at Park Plaza.
Well, that's true, but there were a lot of factors there with Park Plaza.
But unfortunately, there could be a lot of factors anyway.
Well, there could be.
So-
So are you expecting one to help support the other then? I guess that
and-
begs
and
that question.
The hope is certainly not.
Mm-hmm.
But the ability to cross-collateralize, if you had to, would be helpful.
Okay.
You know, real estate developers are always a little risky, but you try to be risk averse if you can. In an office building, although we're still taking some risk, if we get our leases in place and we have relatively good levels of security, we can point to it and say, okay, we've got these commitments, and we can expect this income, and you know, we could, as long as it's being managed properly, we can make it work, right? And it should throw off these dollars. It'll pay the debt service, and we're not going to go broke.
Okay.
But let's say we put up a hotel and a restaurant, and it's a good hotel and a nice restaurant, and nobody wants to go because the economy is in the tank, or if gas is $7 a gallon, or food prices
Hopefully it won't get that high.
food prices keep going up, and we can't make it work.
Yeah.
Those are purely speculative. An office building, at least you can look at lease docs and go, I've got contracts guaranteeing rent. I'm okay with that. And so that's really where we're coming from there. We don't expect the hotel to lose money, but it's real possible. It's going to lose money for a period of time until it gets up and stabilized.
Sure.
And you know, Jay is really adamant. He said, Tim, we can't build a hotel without the office building. You know, we make money. Jay makes money by building a hotel.
Sure.
If he's saying let's not do it, you know, we don't do it.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about the office complex.
Yeah.
And then I want to talk a little bit about specifically what Supley's restaurant is going to be like.
Sure.
Because that's kind
It'll
of
be a short
exciting.
conversation because we don't know what it's going to be like
That's
yet.
fine. That's fine. So that's why I'm starting with the office complex because there you've got a little more
Sure.
concrete answers, I think. You know, my feeling, and I know that others are sharing the same thoughts, is okay. You've got a chamber. If the chamber is supposed to help build business and
Sure.
bring business in,
Right.
they haven't been able to bring anyone to the office building table.
That's not true. They
No,
just haven't had
just-
anybody to sign.
No. Okay, but let me finish. They have not. They have brought forward Davis and Keelthau, the law firm,
Sure.
who has committed to going in there
Mm-hmm.
if, you know, with these other provisos, if the chamber building had been purchased by the city. Now they'll still probably go in if you're able to work out this other deal. But you know, who else have they been able to bring to the table? I mean, okay, you're saying they've brought people to the table, but it's not any good if they're bringing them to the table and they're not signing. So let me rephrase my question then. If they're bringing people to the table and they can't get them to sign, then what is it about the chamber that makes this the anchor for this building? I mean, if they can't get other people in there,
Sure.
what's going to bring them just because they're in there?
I want to answer that question, but first I want to make a clarification, because there was this specter of economic extortion that came up, that Davis and Keelthau wouldn't go in the building unless the city acquired the chamber building, and I'm partially to blame for that because I think I misrepresented the facts, clearly not intentionally.
Sure.
The letter of intent that I wrote said that they didn't care who bought the building. They didn't care if the building was never bought. They simply said, the reason, Davis Keelthau said, the reason we're interested in going into that building is because we believe that the business development office that the chamber is going to essentially create will provide us with business. And one of the ways we're able to underwrite this significant cost increase is because of increased business.
Okay.
And so that it wasn't, and that's where I made a mistake. I misrepresented it, and there's no question in my mind. I look back and I think, how did I, it was really short-sighted. So that's an important, I think, an important clarification.
No, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, my pleasure. Now the next piece, you said, why is the chamber important? Well, they're going to, under one roof, and I think on an efficient layout and a kind of an energized, high-image place, chamber, OADC, Chamco, which is, Elizabeth Hartman, it would be great when she gets back, back from her leave. It would be terrific. And it's going to be an energy center for more business. And then having one of the preeminent law firms next door to them is fantastic, I think. And then just across the street, having, I can't believe I forgot the name of the accounting group. I talked to him for 6 months, the accounting group over in City Center.
Clifton
Gunderson, thank you very much. Having those three folks right there, I think, will be very helpful. But, I guess your question, is the chamber important to this project? Yeah, it's because they're not a group that's coming in and processing loans or doing something else.
Mm-hmm.
They're actually having people come into the building. It's a destination location, and they're putting out energy, and they're putting out other possibility leads, or people can come into that building and the chamber can say, boy, why don't you be a tenant here?
Okay. Just real quickly then,
Yeah.
You're going to have waterfront dining in this restaurant?
Yes.
Okay. I had to shift gears like that so quickly,
No,
but
no
they're
problem.
telling me our time is up.
No
so
problem.
waterfront dining, and of course there'll be indoor dining, and so.
And then an outdoor patio. Yeah, and
And boat docking? Will there be boat docking? As well?
there are plans for about 30 slips out front.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent. I wish we had had a little bit more time. Even just 5 minutes, but we'll have you back again as this all starts to.
Well, good. I hopefully I'll have some prettier drawings, and we can
right.
bring in a golden shovel and all that stuff.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
It was a pleasure. Just
Yeah.
hang on right here. We're going to take a real short break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Amy Weinsheim from the Oshkosh School Board. We'll be right back.
We just escaped.
I escaped
I escaped
by foot.
and ran across the border.
I couldn't practice my religion.
I was put to work in forced labor camps.
If I stay in Cambodia, I would have been dead by now.
If you think differently, then you're an enemy.
If you know how to read and write, you're dead. You speak your mind, you're dead.
The only way to express what I wanted to do was to get out.
I got to the country when I was about 14 years old.
I was 20.
I was 24.
I came here with nothing. No money, no English.
America stood for freedom, it stands for freedom, and that's what all my generation, young generation, wanted to be there.
For the first time, I felt like I have a right to be on this earth.
Here, you can do whatever you want to do.
I love my life here. I feel at home.
I'm free to do what I want.
Freedom to me means my life.
How you doing?
Hi.
Hi.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Thanks.
If only child abuse were this easy to recognize. If you even suspect abuse, call 1-800-4-A-CHILD. All calls are anonymous and confidential. Trust your instincts.
Poor nutrition today will increase Sarah's chances of anemia, add to her healthcare costs, sick days, even stunt her ability to learn. And the thing is, Sarah's not even born yet. Get proper nutrition before it's too late. Call or visit WIC. WIC provides nutrition information, healthcare referrals, even food. Your child has you, and you have WIC.
Half of Eye on Oshkosh, Cheryl Hentz here, and we're sharing a good laugh with Amy Weinsheim. Not about anything we can necessarily share right now, but that's all right. We're going to be talking about other things, in particular the search for a school superintendent, the referendum that you're putting together some things to start work on that. So first and foremost, Dr. Heilman leaves at the end of this month to go to Eau Claire. You guys have just hired a search firm.
Yes.
And that search firm is?
Hazard Young and Atea. I hope I'm saying that correctly.
And one of the things that you had said about them, I mean, you liked some things about a number of the candidates, but one of the things that you said gave them an edge was their communication. Give me an example of what their communication style is, or how they've communicated in the past with somebody that makes you feel that way.
Okay. I can't give you a specific example related to me in any way.
Sure.
But through the reference checks and through the presentations that were given to the board, but particularly the reference checks, everybody who contacted us specifically commented on how pleased they were with the open communication. The lines were open, they were available, they reacted, they were proactive. So that since there seems to be a perception that we have communication difficulties as a district, that stood out as something that would really be a positive for us.
Okay. So I noticed your body language and the way you said perception. You don't think that there's a communication problem in the district?
I don't think there. I don't think the district lacks communication. We try to get news out to folks in a variety of ways. We do have our meetings not publicized, televised, and we have the website now that's been up for a couple of years. Still could use some tweaks. It's still there are still some roadmap issues, even for myself, being a board member and a parent. I sometimes get on there and find myself a little bit lost. But so between our televised meetings, between the website, between trying to get information into the paper, I think we do not to mention the newsletters that go home with every student. So in terms of communicating with parents, I think the district does a good job. I don't think you will find many school districts who actually communicate more than we try to every day.
Well, I will say, I think that they had a huge communication problem at one time. And some of that even, predates you on the board. I think it's gotten better over the years, and and there's always room for improvement, and you recognize that and acknowledge that too. But it has gotten better, and of course, the communication as you approach a referendum is going to be tremendously important. It'll probably be the most critical piece of whether or not this, succeeds or fails at the ballot box.
It'll be key. That'll be the key issue.
So let's, since we brought up the referendum, Winneconne just earlier this week passed a referendum, although it was a scaled down version of what they were originally trying for. And that failed back in April or February, I think it was April. But, the fact that they had to scale something back in order to get it to pass, does that discourage you? Or does it encourage you just that something passed that allows them to exceed the cap?
I think it's encouraging. It doesn't discourage me at all. They went out to their voters with I think a message that will be similar to the message we are trying to take to our voters, that they are not being fiscally irresponsible. And frankly, I think we have a better referendum to bring to the public than Winneconne even did. They're maintaining their budget. They are not they're not increasing their expenditures. So the referendum was really to allow them to simply keep the same expenditures. It's not raising the revenue limits in a manner that will raise property taxes at a rate that would be objectionable to voters and taxpayers. So I think with our referendum, which is really about investing in our capital, I think we actually have a really good, solid, tangible piece that we can bring to the taxpayers and the voters.
All right. So, where is this whole process at, Amy? I know that, the district is looking at putting together a team, if you will, or a committee, if you will, of people who are going to start kind of mapping the way and formulating your battle plan. and I use those words very deliberately because I think it is going to be a battle. at
Sure.
least with some people.
Sure.
And it may be a battle with more than what you might think. You never know. But anytime, I think it's a battle anytime you go to the public and want more money, whether you're the city, whether you're the county,
Yes.
the state, a school district, whatever. So where are you at in assembling this group of people? Who will the group consist of? How many will be on it? Kind of lay that out for us.
Okay, it's still in its fairly infancy stage.
Okay.
Several of the folks who were already involved with what we had originally called Team 6 as we were moving through the process will continue to be involved. I'm fairly certain, I don't want to be quoted as exact because it could
Right.
change,
Sure.
but I'm fairly certain Phil Marshall will continue to be involved. I'm hoping Tom Chakowski, who's a community member, will continue to be involved. We still have the loose workings of the ASC CRT, which, let me try to remember the acronyms, Administrative Steering Committee and Community Response Team. We still have some bones left of that and are hoping to bring some more folks into that fold to, again, work with us in reacting and giving response to the framework of the referendum. So really, it's still very much in its infancy of planning.
Sure.
There's not a lot of meat there yet.
Okay.
In how we are going to approach. We want to have some key community members be our voices that we can bring in and give them the information that they can take out. We want to do focus groups, much like they did, which is right when I moved here in 2001 when they went to referendum and had many different folks giving presentations to community groups, PTOs, site councils.
Sure.
We expect to do much of that same type of work this time around and hopefully use more of our community voices as opposed to administrators or board members.
Sure. And of course, Dan and I have opened our doors to you anytime you guys want to come on and, and talk about this, whether it's someone from the school board themselves or whether it's, someone else from this team that you're assembling, whoever you guys think is best suited to tell your story, to give your message. Our doors and our table are always open. So.
And your questions.
Yes, well,
But
it wouldn't be much of a show without the questions, Amy.
Absolutely, and I since you called it a battle, this quote keeps coming to mind as we approach this year because it's going to be an interesting and challenging year on many fronts, and I'm sure some of your viewers will appreciate it. On the battlefield of ideas, winning requires running towards the guns, and I think that exemplifies what we will need to be doing on the referendum front. And Newt Gingrich was the author of that quote.
All right. Okay. Well,
so we'll keep moving through that battle.
All right. Well, and I think it's going to be a tough year. It's going to be a very tough year. And the other thing that makes it tough is the search for a school superintendent. Now, I don't know how this process is going to work. I mean, you've hired this search team, and let's talk about that for just a moment because, there's always some people who say you can do it yourselves. You don't need a search team. This search firm is costing just over $20,000. It's $20,500. And then, of course, you'll have additional costs for background searches, which I think we can all agree are necessary, and for advertising costs, which you're not going to get candidates without advertising, so that's a necessary cost. So do you have some idea of how much this will cost total? And then the other part of that, Amy, is why can't it be done yourselves?
I don't want to give a firm estimate on what I think it will cost total.
Ballpark?
We're a pretty conservative group, as you know, so I would guess somewhere between that 20,000 mark and less than 30.
And of course, that you are at the mercy too of what newspapers charge. When everybody raises their costs. So I understand, and I would think that most people would, that your costs are very subjective to other people's budgets and
right.
And their rate structures.
But as you know too, we have a board that is made up of folks who keep close tabs on that stuff. So I don't anticipate us having some crazy ultimate end figure in sight. But in terms of why we're not doing it ourselves, everybody has another job. None of us are board members as our livelihood. So truthfully, I think it would be irresponsible to mount a search for something as important as the leader of the entire district, of a very large district, almost 11,000 students, 10,300 students. This is a big district. And to have 7 board members who really are part-time and not necessarily well-versed in what it takes to search and recruit for somebody in a position like that would do a disservice to the students, do a disservice to our taxpayers. I'm sure there are folks who also think we could just hire internally. Why bother with a search?
I'm going to
We
get
could
to
look
that
at
in a
something
moment.
internally. But again, using a firm like this, Hazard, Young and Atea, does have a national presence, which means we will get a much larger pool of candidates and perhaps find somebody that we never, ever would have had the capacity to find on our own.
Sure. Well, and let me just clarify, when I said, doing it on your own, I didn't necessarily mean the 7 board members, although some people probably think that you could do that too.
Right.
But I was thinking, because I'm sure that there are some people who feel that, hey, we've got a personnel department who hires teachers and administrators, and why can't they hire this top administrator? But as you just said, one of the very good reasons is, to have a bigger pool of candidates. You would not be able to probably do that on your own.
No.
So.
No, not even with our personnel department. They would not be able to reach out that far.
So do you anticipate the search process and the hiring process to be, and I realize you weren't here when Dr. Heilman was hired, but do you anticipate it being somewhat similar to that process, or somewhat similar to the process that was probably used by Eau Claire to get him to go there? Or do you have some idea of how this process will go?
We've discussed some ideas, and hopefully we will be meeting with this firm within the next couple of weeks to create an action plan and decide exactly what route we want to take. Many of us would like to do what the search firm has called an abbreviated search or an accelerated search, simply because time is of the essence, and that would hopefully allow us to have some candidates on board by this summer that we could start looking at. In terms of the process of how we go about hiring, I know a little bit about what Eau Claire did and a little bit about what happened when Dr. Heilman was hired here, and I think that it will probably be a mixture of both of those processes, where we will have community folks involved. We will probably have some focus groups. We will probably have some meet and greets. We will definitely be sitting down with the firm to talk about what we're looking for, styles, values, philosophies. So, and I would guess when we get to the point of really finding somebody we're exceptionally interested in, that we might do what Eau Claire did. And in fact, I think they did this with Dr. Heilman as well, went to his school district that he had been working in and talked to folks there. I certainly see that possibility happening.
Sure. Why an accelerated or an abbreviated search? Does it have to do with the fact that there is a referendum coming up, and you've got a few different things working here, and they're all kind of intertwined?
Yes.
So do you feel that the referendum could not pass or succeed without having someone on board in a permanent position?
Honestly, I don't think that's been the driving reason behind it. Simply that Dr. Heilman is done June 30th. And I think all of us would feel more comfortable if we had somebody at the helm this fall, as opposed to going into the new year and knowing that we want to have that referendum on the ballot in February, and not having somebody here to help continue to guide us. I think would be a detriment to the board and district, not necessarily to the referendum, just in the general sense of direction.
Okay.
And so I think that the abbreviated search is appealing to us. It might not yield a candidate, and we can do that without extra cost if that indeed did not bring us candidates that we felt were a good fit, or simply just people of the caliber we're looking for didn't apply. We would then fall back to doing a longer search. But we're leaning towards trying to move this along at an accelerated pace. And that does not mean we won't include, I want to make sure everybody knows, it doesn't mean we won't include community folks and staff. We've had lots of staff people want to be involved with this process as well. So it just means that we will be moving it along on a faster pace.
Okay. Todd Gray, our Director of Finance. Just this week, it has been learned that he is a finalist for a position as the superintendent down in Waukesha. I think that some people feel that he would be ideal for the superintendent position here. I've read on at least one blog that he had sent emails out to all the school board members expressing his interest, you know, in becoming the superintendent. You know, I'm trusting, since you're nodding your head, that yes, that indeed happened. Did he send out an email? And, you know, is the fact that you're hiring a search firm, you know, is that indicative of the fact that you're not interested in Mr.
No.
Gray? Okay.
No, he did send a letter. I don't recall an email, but he did send a letter letting all of us know that he was interested in the superintendency.
Maybe it was a letter, email, letter, whatever. It's a correspondence.
Right, exactly.
Right?
And the fact that we're hiring a search firm doesn't have anything to do with not wanting to consider Mr. Gray. I again think that to be fair to the district, to be transparent, to be open, to utilize communication, which is something that, as we started the show off with, people have felt that we don't always communicate that well. I think it would do a great disservice to everybody involved, Mr. Gray, the board, the school district, to simply hire somebody without going through a process of looking at multiple candidates. And if, you know, Mr. Gray, A, may not be offered the position, or B, may not take the position, I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, and I am not him. So if he chose to participate in the process of applying in Oshkosh, that would be wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I haven't worked with him long enough, nor had the opportunity to talk with him in a way that would give me any insight as to whether he would be a good superintendent. Mm-hmm. He's a great finance director.
Sure.
I've been very happy with what he's brought to us since he's been here. I did not have the opportunity to work with him when he was in the district before. I wasn't here. So I have a much more limited exposure to Mr. Gray.
Mm-hmm. And of course, he can apply. You know,
Exactly.
He can apply for the position. And, you know, what do they say about the cream rising to the top? So,
yes.
You know, I guess let the chips fall where they may, and we'll see what happens. As far as Dr. Heilman leaving, you know, and again, he's been here 10 years. You have not been on the board that long, but you know, what are your thoughts as he departs to go to Eau Claire? What do you think he has done for this district, and what has he accomplished in moving the district forward during the last 10 years?
Well, I think all you have to do is look at some of our test scores and awards that the district has garnered just in the last 6 years. Well, I will have lived here for 7 years this summer. So in the 7 years I've lived here, we've seen award after award after award. Several of our schools, at least 5 that I can think of right off the top of my head, have received the Wisconsin New School of Promise Award. Webster Stanley Elementary, of course, received it 5 years in a row. Mm-hmm. These are amazing statistics. Our achievement has gone up. We've been making our NCLB standards along the way, which hopefully those will change when we have a new administration. And in addition, he is so student-centered that he is the primary reason we have an Oshkosh East High School and an opportunity for students who have been expelled to continue their education as opposed to simply being tossed to the street to fend for themselves. And I think those are laudable. I think it's a great legacy he's leaving us, that we have pieces in place for students to always fall back on. That we are a district who truthfully tries every day to not let students fall through through the cracks, and that is in great part because of the work that Dr. Heilman has done here.
Well, and next week's show, actually, half of it will be devoted to him. He and Karen Bowen will be joining us on that show, and talking about his accomplishments, and if he has any regrets, things that he wished he had been able to get accomplished, and wasn't able to. That's a fair side of the coin as well.
Absolutely.
So, from your perspective, as a board member for a few years now, and now currently in this particular term, you're the president. Do you have anything that you think maybe he could have accomplished or wish that he had accomplished?
Oh, well, I would have loved to have seen some of our high school initiatives move at a faster pace. And certainly Dr. Heilman has been a supporter and a cheerleader for those. I think he might have been able to help move some of it along a little bit faster through perhaps some stronger advocacy. But they're still moving. I can't really say there's something that I think he should have done that he didn't get done. He's weathered a lot of storms the last couple of years, and
the last couple of months.
And the last couple of months, I think he's weathered them with integrity and with a demeanor that I probably couldn't have pulled off, knowing myself and. So I think he's a good man, and he's been a great superintendent, and I know there are folks who don't necessarily think he was the leader that we needed, and perhaps he doesn't have the dynamism some people think a leader should have, but he's a quiet leader, and there is much to be said for that as well. He does not expect the spotlight on him, and maybe he should have expected that more often. And perhaps people would have a different opinion, but having worked with him very closely the last 2.5 years, I can't say enough about the fact that he is always led with the thoughts of students and student achievement, and that is so. That's our mission. That's why we're here.
Sure. Well, he's getting, and we don't have a great deal of time left, so I don't want to get into this real heavily, but he's getting quite a nice salary package going over to Eau Claire, and part of that, I think, is probably because there are so many superintendent positions available right now in the state of Wisconsin, and the market is not necessarily, just teeming with applicants. What does that fact, not necessarily what he's getting over there, but what is the fact of, so many positions, not enough people? How does that factor in with what you're doing? Do you envision this district having to pay somebody more than what we were paying Dr. Heilman?
Yes.
Okay.
The short answer is yes.
That's a very short answer.
And his the other gentleman who was a finalist for that same position in Eau Claire took a position in Minneapolis for more than what Dr. Heilman was offered in Eau Claire. So it's tight everywhere. Those positions are difficult to fill, and they are competitive. And we are, as everybody should know by now, we're a low-spending district in every sense of the word. Our teachers are not paid as well as other districts.
There would be so many people out there who I think would argue that point with you, and but the numbers are what they are.
They are what they are, and it might seem as if they're paid very well if you want to look at it on a more global perspective, comparing to different types of industries.
And not just the teachers, though, Amy. I think there are people out there in the community who would argue that this is not a low-spending district. And again, the numbers, you cannot argue with the numbers.
No, we are.
People can tweak numbers, but you can't argue with these numbers.
If you go to the Wisconsin Taxpayers Alliance, it spells it out in black and white, and we're a low-spending district, and we're one of the lowest of districts our size. We're one of the lowest in administration pay, in total administration pay, and Dr. Heilman was one of the lower-paid superintendents.
And what was his salary again?
$120.
Okay.
120. That didn't include benefits.
Okay. All right. So we're looking at spending more than that, plus benefits.
I would imagine.
And those continue to rise too. So
yes. unfortunately.
All right, very good. Well, we are out of time. I appreciate
Wow.
you being here, though. You know, and we're definitely going to have you back, or have someone back as this whole thing unfolds. I suspect we'll probably have you back as the search for a superintendent unfolds, and then whoever
That would be
you know,
great.
whoever you guys think is best. Again, like I said, to talk about the referendum.
Excellent.
So, all right.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you so much, because I know you raced over here after the East's graduation, so I appreciate that. So
My
thanks
pleasure.
again. Thanks to the crew. Thanks to you at home. We'll see you next time. Until then, take good care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.